Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2. Today's video, we're just going to be taking a look at, knocking things on the bench, this thing right here. And it's a PC mini tower computer of some kind. This machine is just part of the pile of stuff that's up in my office upstairs, and I'm just trying to kind of sort through and, well, figure out what's what. I don't know if this machine works. I don't even know what's inside of this thing, so I figure we'll just play around with this a little bit today. Look at what's inside, see if it works. If not, I don't know, swap some parts, things like that. Who knows? So let's get right into it here. So I'm gonna switch camera angles so we can get a better view of this. All right, so there is the computer on the front side. As you can see, this is a cool mini tower computer. This is probably my favorite form factor of these types of machines. I loved these back in the day when I was building these in my job at a computer store, and I love them today still. They just are nice and compact on your desk, and they just don't seem to really take up a lot of space. So I don't know, I have a real soft spot in my heart for them. There are several different styles of these with just slightly different front panels. This one has this smoked glass, well, it's plastic lens right here, and I have to wonder, is there actually one of those numeric displays behind this that shows the speed? That's a very common thing for this particular case. So this is an AT case. It's got a power switch, we have a turbo switch and a reset switch, a key lock. There's of course a 3.5-inch floppy drive, and we have a slot load CD-ROM or DVD-ROM or something. Zooming in a little bit on the front there, and sorry about the color balance issues. I'm using the iPhone 13 Pro Max whatever as the camera here, and it really struggles down the basement with white balance. It's kind of all over the place, and I'm doing a live feed from the camera to OBS, and yeah, anyways, there's nothing I can do. I can't control it manually. Anyways, I just wanted to kind of show off the sticker that we have here. It's kind of cool. It says Mainline Systems. I don't really recognize it, but of course many PC manufacturers were sticking those stickers on their computers. If we turn the computer to the side, we can see there is a little bit of yellowing on the front versus the painted side of the case, which of course is not yellowed. And flipping this around to the back, we can kind of see what's going on a little bit. Starting up at the top, a regular AT power supply. It's looking a little dusty. Luckily I have some spares in case this one is dead. We have blanks for 25-pin and 9-pin connectors, which are not installed in this particular case. There's the AT keyboard connector. We have a PS2 port, which is going to be for a mouse. That means this thing is going to be a Pentium, because I'm pretty sure no 486 board ever had this type of slot adapter for a PS2 port. We have a 25-pin serial port, a 9-pin serial port, and the parallel port. So optionally, you could remove these from the slot covers and install them right into the case if you so desired. VGA connector of some kind, and down at the bottom of the case we have some kind of a sound card, a modem, and a blank slot where something has been pillaged. Let's pop the cover off, take a look inside. I see the screws are already removed from the back, which means, well, this should just come right off. All right, there we go. Now you might be noticing when you're looking at this particular camera feed that there seems to be some latency in the video, and yeah, unfortunately that's also just comes with the territory when you're streaming from the phone to OBS. My audio is being captured directly by OBS through my wireless microphone through USB, so that doesn't have any latency, but the video certainly does have latency, at least from what I see when I move my hand compared to the preview that I'm watching on the monitor. Because this is a high-class joint, I'm going to use a flashlight to give us a bit more light on the inside of the machine. All right, well, right off the bat, you can see that there are some PCI slots in here. So yeah, that kind of confirms that this is pretty much going to be a Pentium there. So a socket 5, socket 7, something like that. Someone attempted to do wire management here. They actually bundled the wires up with like a zip tie or something. It's kind of fancy. This particular motherboard looks to have 3 ISA slots. It's got, I think, 4 PCI slots, and I don't think it has AGP. Nope, it does not have an AGP slot, which AGP was starting to become common. I don't know how many of these AT-style motherboards have AGP, PCI, and ISA. I'm not sure I've seen that particular combination. It's definitely something that's more common when you have an ATX motherboard, which of course ATX is the form factor still in use today, which means you could take a motherboard. If this were ATX, it wouldn't be in this case, but if it were, you could stick it into a case you bought off the shelf in 2024 and it would still fit. Spinning the computer around, we can see that, yep, this has got, let me zoom out a little bit, this has got the removable tray. So that's pretty sweet. Take these screws out. There might be one more. I don't see another screw. So you take those 2 screws out, but you do have to remove all those cards first, and then the whole motherboard just drops down. Let me pop those cards out, and let's pop the motherboard out so we can take a closer look. Now I do notice quite a bit of dust in this case. Par for the course. That means this thing was used quite a bit. Now the computer's on a turntable, which means, you can't really see what I'm doing. Let me move the camera down a little bit. That means that as I push down with the screwdriver, it sort of wants to rotate. I'm gonna put a glove on here to help me get this thing out of here because it sticks me out. That made it a lot easier. Okay, let's unplug this. All right, that's our ISA sound card. It's a Yamaha. Looks like it's upside down. As Dave Jones would say, all the electrons are gonna fall out. YMF719E-S. Knowing Yamaha, it's probably a somewhat decent card. Probably has Sound Blaster emulation and a ad-lib emulation, of course, because Yamaha originated that chip. Pretty simple solution though, sort of a one-chip thing going on, and we do have some type of a optical storage connector here, 40 pins. Don't know if that's IDE or what exactly. We have a couple chips here that are missing. Looks like a ROM chip, maybe for some wavetable, and maybe that's like the wavetable synthesis chip that's optional for this card. It does have a header though, so you could install a module if you have one that fits, of course, because this card is kind of low profile, and I think a lot of these wavetable modules might be too long to fit on this card. On the back here, audio out, line in, microphone, and MIDI/game. On the back of the card there, nothing too interesting. Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with this card, but who knows, might be a decent little card. Okay, the next card I took the screw out for is just a regular old modem here. Rockwell chipset, Supra Corporation. Okay, so Supra modems. I'm sure there were quite a few viewers who had these things back in the day. There it is, Supra Express 33.6 PNP voice. So plug and play. Yeah, okay, I like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 4. According to the day codes on these chips here, it looks like around 1996. And actually, we didn't really look at this card here, the Yamaha card. Do we have a date code? Not that one doesn't have one. Now, this little microcontroller here from Atmel or whatever this is says 93C66. So I don't know what that is. I don't think that's I don't think that's 1993. Who knows? Okay, so that kind of exposed in the case here, the ISA slots. I can see this is an award motherboard. Let's get this video card out next. Oh, it's very stuck in there because I think the slot cover above it is holding it in. So you just have to loosen that. And oh, it's the one underneath it that's holding it in. All right, so take that out like that. Now this can slide out here. And we have a very boring and generic S3 Trio 64 with the additional RAM installed as well. These cards are, oh, there we go, look at this. Magitronic Technologies. Fancy. Nothing wrong with these cards, and to be honest, once you got to the PCI type cards, things were decently fast on all of these. Like for DOS gaming and stuff, perfectly serviceable card. As far as getting the motherboard out now, all we need to do is just unplug these ribbon cables and things that are on here, since they are attached to everything. This is very typical for the old days. This wire management was pretty much as good as you could do. What happened here? Why is this just floating there? Did I take that off? I guess it wasn't held on very well, since that just sort of fell out. So I'm just gonna disconnect all these cables down here at the bottom for speaker and whatever. I'm having trouble disconnecting the PS2 port there at the top, sort of really tucked in there. So I'm actually just gonna remove the screw from it. And that way it'll come out with the motherboard. Okay, looking at the back of the case now, I'll just pop these 2 screws out. Yeah, this case design was pretty cool. I like this. I like this flexibility. Of course, you know, modern cases have a lot of room on the back side here. So for wire management, you can run cables behind here. There's not room to do that here, except for maybe like the thinnest of cable. But it's just very easy to get motherboards out when you have this tray here. So let's see, we should just be able to pop this out. Why is this getting stuck? There's some kind of RF shielding right here on the keyboard jack. There we go, that was getting hung up. So we just lift up and this pops out. All right, so there it is. Of course, this bundle here is still attached to the CPU fan, so I can't pull it completely free. There is that serial port and PS2 port, so that's attached right here in this upper corner. This motherboard supports all sorts of fancy expansions, so we have dual IDE, ATX, and AT power connector, so you have options for both. There are the two serial ports. I'm assuming that's the floppy connector, and this will be parallel. Notice there's no Varta battery on here as well, just uses a CR2032 coin cell. Excellent. 72-pin memory modules, and this is a Pentium, so if you're going to use these, you got to install in pairs because each one of these is 32 bits wide, and the Pentium has a 64-bit external data bus that goes to the memory. These SDRAM modules, on the other hand, this is probably PC100 or could be PC133, it doesn't say on there. These are 64 bits wide, so you only need a single one of these at a time. This particular motherboard has cache on the motherboard right there, and looking at the traces, these traces actually go places like here to the chipset, so I'd say these are real because there are motherboards with fake cache chips. You can look at the traces and they kind of don't go anywhere. They just sort of loop around and the chips don't actually do anything. Things are quite dusty on here. Here's our CPU cooler with some serious dust bunny action underneath. Let's see if we can get this cooler off here. Yep, that came off pretty easily. This little, you loosen these and that kind of loosens the clips that hold it down, the clamps that is. So no thermal paste, none at all. In fact, they literally installed it on top of a sticker. Really? Do you think that paper sticker provides good thermal transfer? Oh, that is like the extreme of laziness right there. Well, anyways, you can see we have an MMX processor right here. So let's pop this out. We can look at the bottom to see how fast it is. This is actually a 233 megahertz part. Pretty sweet. That's as fast as I think Intel officially went with these chips. They can easily overclock though to 266 usually. Even the 200 megahertz parts typically overclock with no issues up to 266. I have a machine configured with a 200 megahertz part, and yep, it has no issues running that fast. Because I'm not a monster, I'm going to try to clean this mess up here. So this is a little bit of nail polish remover, acetone. It does a pretty good job at getting stickers off things, like stuff that's been stuck on there for a very long time, like this. Oh, you know what? This is a good chance for me to try this. This is a plastic scraper that I got from AliExpress for like $2, or it was $1.50 or something like that. So I think it's good at getting stuff like labels off because it doesn't harm things. And yeah, that worked a treat. So now I can more easily get that goo off. Yes, look at that, coming right off. Excellent. Now the acetone kind of loosens everything. It doesn't really take the goo off, at least I don't find it does. So now that I loosened it up, I'll get it with some 99% IPA there. And that should allow me to really clean that off. Okay, there we go. Looks super duper clean now. Can clean this up as well. So at least, even without thermal paste, when I put this thing back on, it will actually have, well, a little bit of a chance of actually cooling the CPU. I think what I'm going to do, though, is just move the motherboard out of the way, and I'm just going to try to service this fan a little bit. It's in very poor shape. All right. Oh, boy. Now it's pouring with rain outside right now, so I can't really easily go out and use my air compressor to blow this thing out. So I'm just going to use the vacuum here to try to suck up these dust bunnies. All right, that looks pretty good after a little brushing. Let's try to do the fan the same justice here. Yeah, that fan has worked hard for a very long time, and you know, it's still spinning. It still spins. That is one sturdy cooler. CPU cooler with ball bearing fans made in Taiwan. What I'm going to do to the fan is give it a little bearing oil. I went to the HVAC store where you can buy parts to fix air conditioning and stuff like that. And I asked them what kind of bearing oil they would use for motors and stuff. And they said this was the stuff, and it came in a big bottle. So I just keep a little bit in this little dropper here. And then you just lubricate the bearing. Now what you can do is try to clean it out first. But, oh yeah, that does not sound very good, that bearing. No. I'm just gonna spin this with some compressed air first. It's not plugged into anything over there, so yeah, that bearing sounds pretty bad actually. So this fan definitely works, and while it's gonna, you know, do the job to cool the CPU, if you're gonna use this machine long term, definitely recommend getting a new fan. You can get something from like Noctua, something that's actually durable, good quality, quiet, blows a lot of air. I mean, it's amazing this fan's working, to be honest, as well as it is. Actually, we haven't powered it up, so I don't know for sure, but considering how much dust was caked under there, kind of shows that the fan was doing its job, and that's why all the dust was caked in there. I mean, considering that CPU had a sticker on it, this thing was caked up, it'll be amazing if it all even works at all. All right, well, it looks like the fins are bent a little bit over here because it's that's not screwing in there, but who cares? That's fine. 3 is good enough. Whoa, I just blew on the motherboard. A ton of dust just went everywhere. Whoa, don't fall, please. I was just trying to get a view of the motherboard just to kind of give it a little bit of an inspection. Just want to make sure that like none of the caps are obviously bulging or leaking. They look fine. This is before the capacitor plagued this motherboard. And this motherboard sports the good old PCI set. I think was at 440TX, something like that. North bridge, south bridge, I don't remember which is which, but these two chips make up the chipset that runs the entire computer. I'm pretty sure with this chipset, it does not matter that you have a battery that works, but we will take a look at this battery right here. I'm sure it's totally dead. Yeah, dead as a doornail. So this goes into my dead batteries bin here. It's filled with all sorts of stuff. So in goes a Duracell, actually working battery. And I think, let me reinstall the cooler. So with these socket 7 coolers, there's a little bit of a raised or notched area, and that goes right here where it says socket 7. So there is like a orientation that you just need to get this on correctly. Just make sure the clips are on the little tabs on the socket properly. Hold it down with your finger and then tighten it down. You don't have to make it super tight, just there, that's good enough. All right, back to looking at the case. I am curious, on this drive on the top, it says CODE-DR704S. Gone handheld, manufactured May 1998. This is gonna be a CD-ROM drive, I am pretty sure. Oh, right there. Pioneer Electronics Corporation CD-ROM drive unit, DR704S. And considering how dusty the whole computer is, it's actually pretty clean on the outside. I can see like a whole ton of dust caked in around the edge right there. But these types of drives have this sort of felt opening here where the disc goes in. So they're generally pretty good and don't get a ton of dust inside, although I'm sure there's going to be a lot of dust in here. So this thing would need to be fully taken apart, really cleaned really well. In this video though, I just want to see if this thing works, and I'm not going to bother taking everything completely apart just for that type of testing. Power supply also very, very dusty inside. Of course, it was the only fan in the computer, so this was an exhaust fan and all the dust was coming into the computer from every other crevice on here. And actually what's really kind of amusing is the only openings on the case for airflow were any missing slot covers on the back. There's nothing on the bottom. And then on the front here, if these are actual vents, which they probably are, yep, there's actually openings in the plastic there. So it makes its way through the plastic. And then on the inside of the case here, there are holes that are drilled so the air can actually come through. But that's not a lot. So I think a lot of the dust is going to be trapped inside things like the floppy drive and the optical drive because of the lack of proper airflow. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to unplug the power from the optical drive and the floppy drive right there. And I'm going to power up the power supply here with a load attached. You don't really need that. Generally, these are totally fine running without a load. But let's give it a load here. I'm just going to use this light bulb from a car. And we'll plug this into the 5-volt rail here. So the red wire and one of the black wires. And we'll power this thing up. I just want to see, I'm just thinking here, a big dust cloud is probably going to come out the back. But hey, you know what? I just want to see if this thing works, and we have the multimeter right here. And I'll connect up to the 5-volt rail right there so we can at least monitor just to kind of see what is actually going on with this power supply, if it's working properly. If you get an old computer like this, I recommend doing this kind of thing first, just to make sure the power supply is not going to give like, 8, 9 volts on the 5-volt rail. I have had a power supply fail on me, and it did exactly that, and ended up ruining the motherboard. So I do recommend unplugging all the peripherals first and doing a test like this. Maybe plug in an old sacrificial hard drive or something you have that's sacrificial just to give it some load. These car light bulbs work well enough for that. And here we go. So, oh yeah, incidentally, unlike an ATX power supply, AT power supplies have a physical power switch. So currently the mains voltage is running through these wires right here up to the power switch on the front. So just don't touch that area. This thing has little rubber sleeves to keep you from being able to touch it, but still there's exposed bits right there. Here we go. All right, 5.08 volts, and the fan is running. So that looks good. Let's check the 12-volt rail here. So we'll go into the yellow wire. And 11.9. It's working. This old poor power supply that ran for like a billion years actually works. How freaking cool is that? This computer obviously wanted to live. It wanted to keep living. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run the motherboard just like this, just to make sure that it actually works. We're going to put the post analyzer card into here as well. So when you're reconnecting these AT power supplies, the black wires always go together. If you plug it in the other way, you're going to be basically shorting like the 5-volt rail up to some of the other wires and stuff like that. So it's not good. If your power supply is not good enough to protect something, it could cause all sorts of damage. So we'll plug this in again, and let me grab the post analyzer card, which is this card right here. You can get these from China for super cheap. The one thing you just need to make sure you do is do not plug them in the wrong way. If you take a look at the way a PCI card goes in, it's like this with a slot connector. The chips and stuff go towards, well, this is the left edge of the motherboard if you're looking at it from the other way. And these ISA slots are the opposite, where the chips face towards the power connector. So if you plug this in that way, it's going to be backwards, and bad stuff's probably going to happen. Let's use the PCI bus since the camera is facing that direction. Either should work fine. All right, here we go. Let's power this thing up. We should see the LEDs and we should see the post codes. That looks good. I don't have the fan connected, but that's fine for just a quick bench test. Oh, I'm saying that this thing is working. This old thing is a survivor. I freaking love it. Yeah, FF, I think it should be sitting there trying to boot. No video card is installed. So that's obviously not going to work. Now, as you saw, there was no hard drive in this computer, so we can't really, test to see what was on this thing. But what we can do is just see if it actually works. Things are reconnected. Hands are feeling a little dirty because this thing is such a messy computer inside. I won't bother reconnecting any of the wires there yet. I should have put the sound card back in, but I didn't, so oh well. We'll do that in a second if the computer is actually working. And I'm pretty sure that this computer is just going to work. I think we are looking at the capture device. Yep, we are. There we go. Okay, cool. I have the VGA connected to the back, no keyboard. Wow, that CPU fan, it's really loud. Hey, we're getting yeah, look at this, it's working. Auto voltage, CPU over temperature, smart protect. Okay, system health is all right. Whoa, that went really quick. I gotta grab a keyboard. And this is, yes, okay, we're in the right mode for text mode. Text mode looks good. Yeah, okay, I got a keyboard here. This is the one I typically use all the time. So the fan is loud. The CPU fan is noisy. So that would definitely need to be changed. I mean, it's working, so that's cool. Hit enter. Okay, Control Alt Delete. Let's go into the BIOS here. Let's press pause. Where's the pause key? Oop, it was so quick. Yep, the date there is December 9th, 1997. Oh, it's a 430 TX chipset, not a 440 TX. And this doesn't really give us any information about the brand name, and I didn't notice it while looking at the motherboard. So hopefully when I had it out of the case, we can get a good enough view of it from the footage I got there that will allow us to make heads or tails of what this is. All right, so on the motherboard, it has this marking here, GA586TX2. That tells us that this is a gigabyte motherboard, anything with a GA like that. Now, weirdly, it didn't say gigabyte anywhere on there, but it did have the part number at least. So over here on the retro web, there it is, gigabyte GA586TX2. Now, here's what's really interesting. Taking a look at the motherboard in their database, it's only got one cache chip. This is still from the video that you just watched. Obviously, there you go. You can see that there are 2 cache chips. There's a lot of similarities between these 2 motherboards. I mean, it's clearly the same motherboard. The power connectors are in the same place, all the ports, stuff like that. But over here, there's like a voltage regulator plus some capacitors. And over here on this motherboard, there is no voltage regulator and there's no capacitors. There's also seemingly more capacitors around the processor here. There are 15 total if you count all of these right here, and there are 13 when you look here. Now, I suppose if you take these 2 and you stick them back over here somewhere, then there you go. You have 15. This area here with the voltage regulation for the CPU looks very similar. We have 2 voltage regulators on this one, and actually on this one we only have 1. So I'm assuming that the one that's over here, actually it was repositioned to this spot on the version that I have. If we take a look at the versions of the BIOS, I think the one that's running on the computer in front of us is this one, 12/9/1997, which if we take a look at it still, sorry, this play bar is in the way. Yeah, 12/9/1997. So that's the version that we have. It's already on the RetroWeb. Just for fun, let's take a look at the manual here. There it is with 1 cache chip. And I just did a quick scan through the entire manual. It doesn't show that there's any other version that has 2 cache chips. So maybe this is some mysterious 2 cache chip version, like the ultra high-end version of the TX2. I don't really know. I can't really explain it. But if anyone has any thoughts about this, yeah, put a comment down below. And there's the BIOS settings. So we'll leave primary master set to auto right now. We don't need to worry about the secondary because that's where the CD-ROM is connected to. CPU temperature protect, yes or no. Internal cache, boot sequence, everything is just pretty run-of-the-mill stuff here. We'll just leave this set for auto config for the RAM. This all looks good to me. PCI compliance, whatever. MA select, what could that mean? We'll just set that to auto. Chipset NA asserted, DRAM refresh rate. I mean, I don't know. We'll just leave it at the lowest stuff. Remember that these settings are all reset because the battery was dead. Power supply type. All right, so that's the AT style, P8 and P9 and ATX. We'll just leave it set to auto. I think that's because when you have it set for ATX, you're gonna need to have like a remote turn on circuit or whatever, like the power button circuit, like you would on an ATX supply. So this thing does both, kind of cool. Here's the SDRAM settings, and that is what's on here. I don't know what speculative read means, if that speeds it up or not. And CPU temperature just says okay. So it doesn't really monitor all those rails there. They just say okay. Battery says okay as well. And CPU V-Core 2.8 volts. Power management stuff, let's just turn this off. We don't need any of that. Where we're going, which is DOS. PMP OS installed. I don't know, I'm just gonna leave this as it is right there. And integrated peripherals. So we can disable and enable the various things like the onboard floppy controller, serial parallel, we'll just leave that stuff on. Oh, USB support. So I guess there's a USB header on the back of the motherboard there, so you could add some USB ports as well. And yep, everything is run-of-the-mill in here. All right, so when it reset there, I heard the CD-ROM drive like do some stuff, which sort of implies it's live. 32 megabytes of RAM. And that's what we got. All right, for booting, we're gonna use my XT IDE just because it's easier. And I have my compact flash card right here. So we'll slide that in there. And we're gonna install this down here in one of the lower slots. I just use this because, yeah, I could plug an IDE device into the bus and all that stuff. And it's just a pain in the butt to bother with that. This thing is just automatically gonna work. I just stuck these clippers down there on the edge of the card because this card flops around. It doesn't have a slot. It does not have a slot bracket. So that just keeps it from, you know, going down and touching the metal on the bottom of the case, potentially. Okay, let's power this thing back up again. Okay, XT IDE BIOS, sweet, it's working. So master, that's the card itself, and it doesn't appear to be working because it should have detected my compact flash card. And I'm going to take this out and we're gonna plug straight into the motherboard. That's, I guess, what I should have done. So we do need to connect this little adapter here to power, and that's what's kind of annoying about the whole thing. You know what? I just need to cut this zip tie up here as well. Again, the wire management, I appreciate it when it was all buttoned up, but now it's just a pain in the butt. All right, so there is the compact flash card. Now I have to figure out how to get this ribbon cable into here. Ooh, the bit rate. It looks absolutely horrible coming from the iPhone right now. It's all like blocky and everything. It's probably been like that for a while. I didn't even notice. Well, sorry about that. I have the bitrate set to the highest possible setting. Anyways, okay, so this is connected. It's connected to power on the back there, and it's connected to this ribbon cable, which goes into the primary connector on the motherboard. Make sure the fan can still spin there. Yes, it can, no problem. And let's turn this on. There it goes. So there it is, InnoDisc, that's it. Oh, found the Pioneer as well. Sweet. I worry about this thing sitting on its side here. Oh, by the way, it looks like I have some SCSI stuff configured on my card there. Last time I was using it was in a machine with a SCSI adapter. Anyways, I worried about using this computer on its side because the optical drive is that slot loading one. Now, I think they work on their side, but I'm gonna tilt this thing back up just so it has the best chance of actually working. All right, so a couple things we're gonna do. I'm just gonna take a cleaning floppy here, stick it in the drive. I don't want to use that alcohol. I don't know where that came from. We'll use this stuff here. There we go. So I'll pop that in there. And it is booted up right now. I'll go A:, the light's on. It's fine. I just needed to kind of try to do something here. I can hear it spinning. I have a copy of MemTest 2.0. So these old versions work better on these old processors here. So let's pop this in here. And I'm gonna reboot this thing and we'll see if it boots up into MemTest. It made the optical drive go when I hit Control-Delete there. Oops. Let's see if this thing boots up. I think it's configured to boot to A. So we'll let it run through some MemTest stuff for a while just to verify the RAM. Yeah, it's loading. So this drive works. Oh, I love how dirty this computer is. It's such a dirty bird. And yet, it totally works. All right, I'm just gonna let this run here for a while and we'll see what happens. Just verify this machine works. I have low blood sugar right now. My pump is going off. So I'm gonna go upstairs and sort that out. It has gone through an entire pass. You see it says pass 1. It would say pass 0 on the first pass. No errors, so the RAM is working. Oh, at the bottom, pass complete, no errors. Press escape to exit. I'll pop the floppy disk out. We'll let this thing boot up. Actually, I'm gonna turn this off. Let's pop the sound card in. So I popped the sound card in right there. One thing we didn't test is if there's a display on the front, and there obviously is, because this thing has, well, the wires coming off of here have a power connector. So anytime you see a power connector coming out the front panel, you pretty much know there's gonna be some kind of LED action going on there. So let's find a cable to plug this into. This one comes off the CPU cooler. We'll just chain these all together, why not? Now, sometimes you have a cable, like just a red and a black cable like this that comes right off the power supply that then connects to the front panel. And that's another indicator that there's some kind of a LED display there. So there we go, let's turn this on. 233, it's a 3-digit thing. So it's quite possible, I don't have the switches connected here, that the turbo light would change that to something else, but I think that's kind of unlikely because these types of motherboards, there's no turbo functionality on this motherboard, so it's pretty much 233 all the time. That's pretty cool though. These 4-digit ones aren't the most common. It's usually just 2 digits on the earlier cases, and only the later ones do you have these extra digits. So with the system booting up here, let's see about, well, maybe Unisound. I think I have Unisound on this card. I think that can actually support this particular card. First, let's fix this SCSI errors that we're getting here. I really need to use Phil's Hardware Labs like menu thing going on here. It'd be nice if there was a tool to sort of help you with that. I mean, it's not like it's that hard or anything. It's just, it'd be kind of nice to not have those extra steps. So I do have some ESS sound stuff in here. Well, Rampage. To be honest, I'm not sure AECU is actually ESS. So if we look at the auto exec here, I do have a little bit of thing here. So I currently have no sound set up on there. So let's check out Unisound. Yeah, look, Yamaha control and mixer set. That worked. So it set it up with 220. Did it actually set that variable? No, it did not. So I think you need to set a blaster that then actually like copies those settings for at least the AdLib or the 220 IRQ5 DMA1/3. So let's go fix that. Now you can see that the version of Unisound I have is kind of old. It's from 2019. I know there are more current and up-to-date ones. So I'm just gonna set this up for Unisound. I don't think we need this stuff. Don't need any of this Sound Blaster stuff. I obviously copied the Sound Blaster stuff. So let's cut that out of there. Okay, so I have the blaster command and it had set it to 220 IRQ5 DMA1 and high was 3. MPU was set to 330. I don't know, I think that's wavetable stuff, so we'll just take that stuff out of there like that. And then we'll run the sound, Unisound driver. And then we just need to go to finish, which is actually like that. So now if we check this out, so at the top here, I have it going to Unisound. And if we auto exec run this now, oops, auto exec. So there we go, it's set it up. And if we do set, there's now a blaster thing there. I don't know if I need that T. I had T6 originally. I wonder if I need that T thing there. I wonder if Unisound has some kind of like, oops, Unisound. Let's look if there's something that sets the variable up for you. If the blaster is set, then Unisound will use those values. Oh, okay, that's cool. And it looks like you could set up the mixer stuff. Does it say it's using the variable there? Yeah, blaster variable found. Okay, cool. So it's actually using the exact settings that I just used as the default. Okay, I'm just gonna get the sound card connected up to my speakers and the audio capture. Okay, it is connected now. So we should be able to run Jukebox. It's an AdLib Jukebox, so it should have AdLib sound. If it works, come on. All right, okay, so you notice how it looks a little funky? That's the scan converter. Let's switch to the other mode. I think I need this one. Yeah, there we go, that fixed it. So because text mode, I think I talked about this before, but text mode on PC is 720 by 400, and the graphics modes are either 640 by 200 or 400, or 320 by 200 or 400. And because of that, the scan converter is either set up for 720 pixels or 640 pixels. So I have a button on my Stream Deck, which over serial talks to the Extron scan converter to give us the appropriate settings. So yeah, if you kind of look, if I switch this back to 720, you'll notice like around highways, like just the spacing doesn't look quite right, but if I push the button, now it looks perfect. I mean, it's pretty hilarious. I gotta push a button to fix that. Here we go. Uh-oh, not hearing anything. No, I'm not hearing anything at all. Let's try Planet X3. I'm gonna set this to AdLib mode. There is no sound. All right, I saw the problem. I had it plugged into the wrong jack on the back. So normally on Sound Blaster cards, the audio output is the closest to the game port. On this card, it's the furthest away, which is one of the like mic input or something like that. So let's run this again and we'll do AdLib. Oh yeah. All right, so that's working. Sweet. And because this is a Yamaha card, the OPL sound should be perfect. There shouldn't be any issues. And yeah. All right, that sounds perfect. Let's go back to the jukebox here. Oops, if I could type correctly. Jukebox, there we go. All right, 1991 AdLib. So that works really well. That sounds, I mean, I'm no AdLib expert. That sounds really, really good. Let's do Doom here. So Sound Blaster for the playback, and the sound effects is also Sound Blaster. I don't know what kind of Sound Blaster this emulates. I'm assuming like it's just a Sound Blaster Pro. So let's see if this works. Save and run. All right, so we have music, but of course we knew that was gonna work because the AdLib music is compatible. We've already been listening to that. Oh, yeah, right, we've got working sound. I have no mouse connected, so it's WASD right now, the way I have it configured, so I don't even know how to turn. Oh, there we go. How do I open the door? Oh, yeah, I'm used to playing with the mouse. I don't even know how to open the door here. There we go. All right, that was a brain malfunction. I'm just used to playing with the mouse. When you don't have mouse, WASD, that didn't work properly. In my mind, it didn't work. Obviously, performance you saw there was great because this is 233 megahertz, this processor, and it has a PCI video card, so we have lots of throughput there on the whole system. I want to run SpeedSys here, but to do that, we need to reboot with nothing running here. I think this should work. Audio is going to be absolutely terrible on this video because of all the noise of the computer. So I apologize for like the compression and expansion or whatever you're hearing. There we are, P55C233. That's exactly what this is, 174.85. It's as expected. All right, let's reboot this thing and let's see if I can get this CD-ROM drive working. I guess the first thing I had to do is find a CD. Oh, I think I have that like 50 best games for Windows 95 disk floating around here. We'll pop this in, see if it even loads, and then I gotta get MSCDEX working. Let's switch back to text mode. There we go, looks good. It's cool that sound card works though. I'm kind of a sucker for just like always going to Sound Blaster cards, but that's not bad. It really is not a bad card. Actually, I just want to try playing Cubic Player here for a second here. Let's see how this is configured. All right, so I have this set up for Gravis Ultrasound right now. So let's take this stuff out. Put that one back in for the wavetable mixing. And let's try this one for player devices, because I think this card's also like a Windows sound system, WSS, and probably supports 16-bit with that mode. But in Sound Blaster emulation mode, it probably only supports simply 8 bits, and that's it. So let's see if this actually works here. Cubic Player can be a little fussy about the way it's configured there. Well, it ran. Let's see if it can play anything. All right, here we go. Let's see. All right, that's working. And there's plenty of horsepower in this computer, of course, to do the mixing and stuff. Let's play something that has 16-bit samples. All right, yeah, this one is here. Let's listen to this. Well, I'm kind of thinking that this is playing back with 8 bits because it definitely sounds a little aliased, and it's definitely mostly using those 16-bit samples right there. So I'm not too sure. I'm going to try to hit pause here. I just want to know what this is running as. Okay, it's running as a Sound Blaster. All right, there we go. So yeah, it's running in 8-bit mode. I thought maybe somehow it was using Windows Sound System because this card is compatible with that, but I guess the problem is you have to be running inside Windows in like a DOS window for that to work. I'm not totally familiar on that. So therefore, these Yamaha cards, while they're pretty good and they have great ad-lib compatibility, and if you get them really cheap, it could be a nice alternative to buying a Sound Blaster. On the other hand, you don't have that 16-bit support, so it's not like Sound Blaster 16 compatible. I don't think anyone ever made a card that was, at least not off the top of my head. But that just means if you're using one of the newer games that actually has 16-bit audio, you're just not getting all the fidelity. But things like Doom and I think like Duke Nukem 3D and stuff like that, that doesn't matter. That stuff's all just 8-bit samples anyways. All right, before I went off on that little bit of a tangent, I thought I was gonna try something. Oh, the CD-ROM drive. Let's see if we even have MSC. Oh, I do have MSC-EX on here, but I just never use CD-ROM drives in DOS ever. So I need to have like a device driver for it. This is the auto exec portion of it. All right, so what I'm going to try to do is look through all my utility directory here for any syst files, and we're going to see if we have something that maybe is actually for a CD-ROM drive. Mach 20, nope, it's none of that stuff. S drive, I mean that's ASPI stuff, that's SCSI, so it's not that. Superstore, zip. No, okay, I guess I gotta go find a CD-ROM driver. Okay, I downloaded these, which I think should be fine, like the ATAPI CD.sys, I don't know. So we have to add this to our config sys, and you have to push /D, which is the name of the driver, and I'm just gonna call it purple or something like that. I don't think it really matters. And then after that works, then it's just the MSCDEX, which you have to also point to the name of the driver, which is purple. But what we're gonna do is just reboot here. We can run MSCDEX from the command prompt manually. You normally would have it in your auto exec, but you can just do it by hand, just so I can get that correctly working. I have to say, I have not used CD-ROM drive in DOS in years because I have a compact flash. Oh, there it is. Pioneer. Okay, sweet. So it sees it. Okay, so we go MSCDEX. I don't know, let's just try purple. All right, drive E is the CD drive. So obviously that's not working, so we're gonna abort out of that. I need to find a disk. As I was saying, I haven't used a CD in forever because I have compact flash cards I use everywhere, and I could just stick that into the card reader on my bench computer here. So to copy a file like I just did, it takes me like 2 seconds, if the computer's open, especially like this one. Okay, so I got some CDs here in a box. How about this Windows 95 CD? Let's try this one. Boy, this is laggy. What is wrong with the iPhone? Anyways, here's the CD. I guess the question is, well, pushing the eject made it try to do something there. Hey, it took it! How cool is that? I love it. Reliable Pioneer drives. It's spinning very quickly. So now we do dir, there it is. It's the freaking Windows 95 CD. Let's just type readme.txt. Yeah. You know, I've been actually meaning to copy the Win95 directory off one of these CDs. Like this is the setup stuff here. Because I would like to have a copy of Windows 95 on this compact flash card. I think this compact flash card, I have multiple partitions. What's this stuff? Oh, look, I already have 95 set up in here, which looks like a copy of the CD, which I put here in 2022. Okay, so yeah, I think that's like the same stuff that's on the E drive here. Oh, it looks a little different. So I think we just, let's see if we can figure out which is which. August 1996. And the readme.txt that's on the CD is August 96. Okay, so there, I think this is like the Service Pack 2 or 95 OSR 2 or whatever that's called, the later second release of Windows 95. Well, let's see if this thing ejects the CD. What a great CD-ROM drive. Yeah, that freaking works. It's probably so dirty inside, and yet that's amazing. That's simply amazing. So I think that's going to be it for this video. The computer is pretty noisy the way it is now, but it's really cool that this thing is fully functional. I guess the one thing we didn't test is the modem, but I don't really care about testing this. If anything, the only good part on this is maybe this is an EPROM, maybe, but if not, I don't know. Yeah, so I like modems when they're external. Those are kind of cool, but internal to computers, not cool at all. Not a fan. At least it's not a Win modem. Win modem is like the worst thing ever. Those things, I feel no sadness to put those in the recycle bin. But these, on the other hand, I mean, at least this thing is a working, whatever, it was like a 28.8 or 36K, 33.6K modem. Yeah, this machine's a real survivor. It is so filthy on the inside. Outside's pretty clean, but it's super cool. It has that 3-digit LED display on the front for the clock speed. Obviously, I think if you take this front panel off, you can change jumpers around to change the numbers that are displayed there. Pentium 233 MMX, great, solid DOS processor. I highly recommend if you're setting up an old retro DOS gaming PC, that's a great option. It's a very fast chip, but the cool thing is you can underclock it because the multiplier settings are unlocked to, you can go down. You can't go up, but you can go down. So you can underclock it to say 166 or whatever. And I think you could even change the bus speed as well if you want to keep going down with the clock speed. And one thing you can actually do is you can hook the turbo button up to the jumpers on the motherboard, depending on how the motherboard works. But on my lab PC or my DOS PC behind me there, I have that hooked up. The turbo switch is actually hooked up to the multiplier jumper on the motherboard. And in one position, it runs at like 266, and in the other position, it runs at, I think, 166. So it overclocks it one way and then underclocks it the other way. So if I run it at 166, and then I disable the cache, the internal and external cache on these types of Pentium chips, they slow way down. They run an equivalent of like a 386. So it's perfect for running old games that are 386 era. So like Wing Commander and stuff works. Unfortunately, it doesn't get any slower than that. I mean, maybe with some extreme underclocking and turning all the caches off, then it could run at 286 speeds. Because I do have some games that are still too fast, even on a 386. Like they work on 286s, but on a 386, they really don't work properly. I think like Bubble Bobble is a good example of one that does not work properly on even a 386, or at least on the Pentium where it's like decached and underclocked. But yeah, it's still a great processor because you can run Windows 95 okay on it, like without, you know, any real issue. Windows NT, old versions of NT will work on here. Linux are going to work on here, like the early versions of Linux. And then lots and lots of games work. And Phil's Computer Lab has a little DOS utility setmol with like some scripts and stuff. And you can easily just enable and disable caches and stuff right from the command line, like so on the fly. So you can set up batch files to start your old games, automatically disable the caches. Otherwise, you just have to go into the BIOS settings and do it. In fact, I think on this processor, you can only disable the L2 cache with the command line, and L1, you have to go into the BIOS to do that. So it's an extra step, but nonetheless, it's still very flexible, and I really, really like these Pentium MMX processors. Combined with something like a Voodoo card, then you can actually do some good old 3D gaming, I guess. I could never get Voodoo cards working properly. But yeah, I really like it. And so it's pretty cool. I like this particular form factor. I think these cases are awesome. I am glad to have saved this thing. This was about to be recycled at some point, and I grabbed it. And yeah, it's outfitted pretty good. Probably, if I were going to do a custom build to something that's like much more my liking in this case, I would probably put a 486 in here, like a DX266, like that era, in these cases. These cases kind of went out of fashion around the time of the Pentium that's in here. And that's because ATX came out at that point, and most people were moving to ATX. In fact, my Pentium 233 or whatever, 266, 166 combo machine back there is an ATX case. Is it? Yes, yes it is. I was just double checking. It's an ATX case, and the reason why is because there's more slots. It's got AGP in there, so I have like a TNT2 card in there and stuff like that. So it's a little more roomy, it's just easier to work on. These cases, on the other hand, were popular, super popular in the 46 era and at the beginning of the Pentium era. So this is definitely kind of a late build, the way this is here. So like I said, I would probably rebuild this to put a 46 in there. But that's the fun thing about these retro DOS PCs, if you're into them, is like, sky's the limit. And being an AT case, you can put a 286 in here, you can put an XT in here if you want, you know, all the way up to these late Pentium AT motherboards that's in here. But as long as it's like a, I think it's called the baby AT. Oh, it's confusing. So an AT motherboard is really big. It's what's in the 5170. That doesn't fit in here. It just doesn't have enough room here, because the motherboard would come all the way like over to here. So that doesn't fit in here. So, but the baby AT size, which is like the XT and other 286 clone type motherboards, 386s, 46s, and of course the Pentium motherboards all do fit in here. And everything's compatible with this power supply, and there's two 5¼ inch drive bays. You can add like a couple disk drives. There's room for 3½ inch drives. And yes, it has two front facing drive bays that are exposed, and then it has looks like one internal drive bay for a hard drive. Now, that's if you want to use a hard drive, you could go solid state. So there's lots and lots of options with these things. Totally dig these cases, and I really like how this one looks. And yeah, so this has been my little PC archaeology exploration of this case. And like I said at the beginning of this video, I didn't think there was going to be anything like super cool about this. Oh, that sound card's kind of cool, actually. The Yamaha sound card. I like that. I like that it works as well as it does. And it's a good, honest DOS sound card. I just pulled the card out of here, so we just look at it one more time. So this card here, I don't know how much these cost if you find these floating around, but I have to imagine it's a lot cheaper to buy one of these than it is to buy one of the older Sound Blasters. So if all you're looking for is just AdLib and Sound Blaster compatibility, this Yamaha card, it's where it's at. I'm assuming this has Windows sound system support as well. So if you want to use this Windows 95, there's probably drivers for it, and then you'll get 16-bit audio and whatnot out of it. But you got a joystick port as well. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty good card, I gotta say. A lot of times I look at ISA sound cards and I kind of dismiss them. I'm like, yeah, I just get a Sound Blaster. But the reality is, I know Sound Blasters cost a ton of money these days, even though they're so ubiquitous and so common. Typically when I'm building a machine up, like if I was putting the 46 in here like I was talking about, I probably wouldn't use this. I would use something like a Pico Gus if you want Gravis ultrasound support, because that's a perfect combo for the 46, to be honest, or a Sound Blaster 16. Sound Blaster 16 is just a universally great card. I love that card. Super broad compatibility. Just like this one, it would work in all the old DOS games, everything perfectly. But then you also have that 16-bit sound audio. Plus you can have a wavetable, which you can do on this as well. It's a good card. But on the other hand, if you can get one of these for dirt cheap, it's a good option. Now, speaking of the Pico Gus, by the way, I mentioned it several times. One of the things that's being worked on for that card, and I don't know if it's out quite yet, is full Sound Blaster like 1.5 compatibility, which means it's very similar to this card, 8-bit Sound Blaster support. I think mono, I don't know if it's Sound Blaster Pro, which is 8-bit stereo, but it does support AdLib and Sound Blaster and whatnot. So it's a really good Doom card. And the PicoGus is a pretty inexpensive card, not to mention you get compatibility with Creative Music System, with the Gus, Gravis Ultrasound, all that kind of stuff. So in a way, if it was a toss-up between having the PicoGus or this, I would rather get a PicoGus. It just has way more capabilities, way more expandability, and because it's a software-defined card, there's lots of new stuff coming down the pipe for that. This, on the other hand, it's fixed in time. But anyways, yeah, just that was a bit of a tangent. Anyhow, to wrap this thing up, I'm just stoked that this computer is in such great physical shape. It's just dirty, but otherwise it's literally in mint condition and it works perfectly. So that's just a bunch of parts to go into my stock to have the flexibility to build various PCs in the future. So I hope you enjoyed this video, this sort of, video where I didn't really do anything except just test out an old PC. If you did, thumbs up, all that usual YouTube stuff. Huge thanks to my patrons. Their names are scrolled on the side of the screen. Patrons get early access to videos, behind the scenes stuff, things like that. There's a link down below if you want to become a supporter. And yeah, that's going to be that. So, oh yeah, sorry about the terrible video quality on the iPhone again. I just don't know what's going on with that thing. I'm going to have to start using my Pixel in place of that when I'm doing the streaming. It seems to work a lot better and not get all blocky and horrible like that does. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, thanks very much for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you next time. Bye.